Some unexpectedly good news on the inflation front today. The Labor Department announced that the Producer Price Index fell in February by 0.1%. Now, most of that decline in the price index was due to lower automobile prices and lower fuel prices. There continues to be a glut of gasoline on the world markets. Now, those lower inflation rates have a lot of implications. For one thing, changes in the Producer Price Index usually foreshadow changes in the Consumer Price Index. So when you go to the grocery store, you may see lower food prices in the future. That automobile that you want to buy may be a little bit cheaper. All of these things that consumers buy may go down in price. Second, there may be a chance that the lower inflation rate will lead to lower interest rates, and that would be good news for the real estate market. However, I don't think that the rates are going to come down very much. There's a huge budget deficit projected for this fiscal year, and if the Reagan administration does not cut back on its defense spending or raise taxes, both of which are unlikely, I don't think rates are going to come down much. So there's good news and bad news, as usual. I'm Will Clark, and that's the bottom line.
A large part of Penn Square Mall was turned into an intergalactic encampment of sorts. Today was the first day of head-to-head competition of the Oklahoma City Asteroids tournament. Hundreds of competitors from as far away as Texas turned out to find out who's the best asteroids blaster. Kyle Thompson of Oklahoma City says he's been practicing his asteroids technique since Christmas.
When the asteroids are coming at you and you think you can't get them in time and you're turning your ship around, they're coming at you, then you just go ahead and press hyperspace, and sometimes you can make it out of there with that, and then you can go back and get them.
We have a lot that stand around and watch the other kids and pick up techniques, and you know, they're very, very competitive. We had some really fierce competitors here today.
The Asteroids playoffs will wind up tomorrow. The best blaster in this bunch will walk home with a brand new home computer. Mark O'Neill, Action 4, Penn Square Mall.
It's a step that'll open up, well, get actually essentially.
We'd also be establishing a clinic in Florida.
Facilities here. You can follow up patients. You have scanning apparatus. Hopefully we have a. This is not chemotherapy. It's a form of immunotherapy, and yet the easiest way for me to explain it, it's similar to diabetes and insulin. If you have high blood sugar, you go to the doctor, he takes a blood test, and then he augments your own production of insulin with the insulin. Now, we are merely giving to the patients antibodies that we get from the normal individual, as well as 2 other immunoproteins. We're augmenting their own immune system.
It's a fact. We're in the middle of a new baby boom. Women who've been waiting for later in life to have children have apparently decided it's late enough. Well, tonight in part one of our series, From Here to Maternity, we look at a tough question that some of these older mothers may face. A healthy child, what every woman hopes for. Now science enables a woman to know beforehand whether or not the child she's carrying is going to be normal. The mysterious world of the unborn is being uncovered. Women who have had reason to wonder if their pregnancies are progressing normally can be reassured by a battery of tests. Perhaps one of the most revealing is amniocentesis, where fluid is drawn from the womb. The fluid surrounds the baby before birth, and each drop can tell doctors dozens of things about the child. Information about its health, even its sex. By counting the chromosomes that are taken from the fluid, researchers can tell if a child has a birth defect, particularly if it has mongoloidism, Down syndrome.
Down syndrome is one of the chromosome abnormalities that we're concerned about, and it's one that many people are acquainted with because it's one of the more common. As an example, at age 20, the incidence would be about 1 in 2,000 deliveries. If we're talking at age 45, this would be as high as 1 in 20 to 1 in 10.
It's those statistics that frighten women like Shirley Fisher. She's 34 and pregnant with her first child. Because of her age, she had amniocentesis done last month. She and her husband have talked about what they'll do when they get the results.
If we find that this is a good and healthy fetus, we'll continue the pregnancy, and if we find that we have a defective fetus with some serious problems, then we'll terminate the pregnancy immediately.
I just couldn't. I don't believe in abortion unless the mother's in danger.
It's a decision more and more prospective parents are facing. Because she doesn't believe in abortion, Lanny Mendez spends a great deal of time in doctors' offices with her daughter Marlena. She is a Down syndrome child.
I noticed right away by looking at her features, and what can you say but just stare, and it's just hard to accept. You just look and think, it just couldn't happen.
But it does happen, and in the future, many women will be given the information about their unborn child's health and asked to decide its fate. Some will feel as Lanny does.
I had a good life when I was young. Whether she's handicapped, whether, she was a normal child, I want her to enjoy the same as I have. They deserve a chance. She deserves it.
This lot at Northeast 14th and Lottie is vacant right now, but sometime next year a home will be built here. It'll be a place where parents can stay while their children undergo extensive medical treatment at Children's Memorial Hospital a few blocks away. This will be a home away from home. This is an artist's rendering of the planned home. It's called Ronald McDonald House. The home will help children afflicted with chronic diseases like cancer or leukemia. While the kids are treated at Children's Memorial Hospital, their families will be able to stay nearby for just a few dollars a night. Bill Ripley is president of a parents group which is working to get the house built.
A child with chronic illness places a tremendous amount of pressure on a family, no matter what their means, no matter where they live, and no matter how well they adjust to it. We can lift a portion of that burden by providing a place where they can function as a family, a place where they can seek love, support, and hope for tomorrow.
McDonald's Corporation is providing the seed money to get the $500,000 project started. The parents are soliciting volunteer materials and services. For further information, contact Beth Allspa at 848-6800. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at Children's Memorial Hospital.
Paul
Ronald was born a week ago tonight here in the Baptist Babe Center in Oklahoma City. Now, what makes this different from a regular hospital birth is they try very hard to simulate a home birth, to make it very comfortable, very relaxed. You know, a lot of women are having their children at home these days because they say they don't like hospitals. They say they're a little too structured. They say they're characterized by fathers nervously pacing the hall waiting for word of their offspring.
Well, you want to tell your husband like this?
Yeah, I go tell him. Can't see it? It's a boy.
Got a little boy child.
But not all hospital births are like this one.
Well.
You're doing good. You're doing good. Keep it coming.
This is also a hospital birth. Dawn Heitzman and her husband are in the Baptist Babe Center, a suite that looks more like a master bedroom than a delivery room. But it's more than decoration. The philosophy of birth is different here.
I think it's a very individual thing, and the patients have to be individualized. What is good for you may not be good for the patient in the room next door. And there is no cookbook way to practice obstetrics or medicine in general, and that's where the art of medicine comes in.
So unlike most hospital births, there are few set rules here. Women aren't routinely medicated for pain. There are no routine IVs, no prep. The center is popular with those who believe that in most uncomplicated births, nature does the best job.
Push, push, push. There you go. You're looking good. Come on. Easy. Don't push now. Just relax.
I can't. It's
Just open your eyes and watch.
Just watching.
See the baby's head?
Easy.
Oh, my.
Oh my goodness.
This baby is.
It's a baby.
Big one. Big one.
Say hi to Mom and Dad.
There. Yeah, my legs are killing you guys.
Okay.
All right.
Hang on. Hang on. Let's see what we got. How about a baby
Boy.
boy? All right.
Jonathan Robert Heitzman. 8 pounds, 15 ounces, seconds old.
Now that's covering up to keep the moisture out and the heat in.
He won't be shuttled off to the hospital nursery. He'll stay in the Babe Center with his parents until they all go home in about 6 hours. They aren't even required to stay overnight. Why do couples like the Heitzmans choose this type of birth?
You're more alert, more awake, and can participate.
I see it as just emotionally tying yourself that much closer to the baby because you feel it, everything that happens, and so it somehow just creates that type of an emotional bond, which I think is important.
And how do you feel?
I feel blessed.
A birth with many of the advantages of being at home but few of the risks, because things can go wrong during even the most routine childbirth. And tomorrow we'll look at one couple's confrontation with the unexpected and how they handled it. You know, of all the births in the United States, fully 15% are done by cesarean section now. And a growing number of would-be fathers would like to be in the operating room when their children are born. Some hospitals will allow it and some won't, and that's causing quite a controversy. Tonight in our series From Here to Maternity, you'll see the experiences of one couple when they found out they had to have a C-section. Debbie Bray is in labor. This is her first child, and she hasn't had an easy time of it. The labor isn't progressing well. Her friends sense that something is wrong. Debbie and her husband had planned to have a natural childbirth, but things don't always go as planned. At 2:58, her doctor is alerted. Dr. Fenton Sanger finds that Debbie's pelvis isn't large enough for the baby to pass through. He'll have to perform a cesarean section. But this will be a first for the hospital because Debbie's husband will be allowed to be there, a controversial move.
For us, that's a new policy at Baptist Hospital. That's true, and our thinking behind that is that that particular operation, cesarean section, is viewed more as a birth of a baby than as an operation.
My particular feelings are that the father does not have any encouragement role to play and would be there as a spectator and therefore doesn't really have any business being in the cesarean section room.
But a growing number of doctors disagree and are allowing fathers in the operating room. Debbie is wheeled in, followed by her husband, who's now gowned but admittedly nervous about the decision to operate.
It was probably a bigger surprise to me than it was to her. You know, I had a harder time coping with it than she did because she was ready to do anything.
Where'd we started? You all right, Debbie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to go, you know, and we had discussed that, you know, that they just voted that in to the Baptist Hospital, you know, to where I could go in, which, you know, I didn't think that we'd have any problems. And when it started, it was not bloody at all, and it was just smooth, and it was so interesting, you know, I lost all fears. And then when the baby came out, you know, it was pure ecstasy then.
See that boy? You bet.
I can't believe red hair. My grandmother has red hair. Mine's getting redder the older I get.
The Brays, like many couples, had looked forward to sharing the birth experience. That dream could have been shattered by the unexpected cesarean section. But some hospitals, under pressure from patients, are rethinking their policies of keeping dads out.
There's not much. I knew there wouldn't be.
You know, for most of us, our entry into this world is a rather uncomplicated thing, but that's not always the case. For some, it becomes a matter of life or death. Tonight, the final part of our series, From Here to Maternity. Janet Byington, 5 months pregnant, is in trouble. She's in danger of going into premature labor. A baby born this early would have a difficult time surviving. But the situation is now even more critical. Only minutes ago, doctors discovered that she's carrying twins, adding further complications to an already dangerous situation.
Have you had any other problems with this pregnancy? None whatsoever. Nothing whatsoever.
Nurses administer drugs to try to stop the labor. Janet's temperature is checked constantly to make sure infection hasn't set in, and for a while, things go well. Until the 5th day. Labor has started again and can't be stopped. The babies are in danger. Doctors will have to perform an emergency cesarean section. The neonatal team is alerted to prepare for the premature infants. At 8:56, surgery begins. Doctors work quickly. Within 3 minutes, the first baby is born.
Okay.
Baby born 8:59. Pretty good size, isn't she?
Yeah, better than I thought.
But the baby isn't breathing. She's quickly handed to Dr. Joe Alexander, chief of the neonatal unit, who begins emergency procedures. Time is critical. Every second that goes by is a matter of life or death. But the baby isn't responding. Its tiny hand remains motionless. But as doctors try to revive the first child, they soon have another crisis on their hands. The second twin, also a girl, is born. Doctors administer oxygen, hoping to stimulate the tiny lungs. One of the nurses begins chest massage. There's a strange silence in the operating room. If the baby doesn't cry and breathe on its own soon, the chances of its living are slim. Finally, the sound they've waited for. But the babies aren't out of danger yet. Incubators are brought in to transfer them to the neonatal unit, a department that specializes in the care of premature infants. The fact that they were born in a hospital equipped with such a unit increases their chances of survival dramatically.
As you could see down at the delivery room, we acted very rapidly at the time these babies were born, and they were in considerable trouble when they were born. Within 5 minutes after they were born, we had made the adjustments to compensate for the fact that they were born prematurely, had endotracheal tubes in their lungs, and were breathing for them. Had they not been born in a place where these facilities were available, this process could have been delayed or perhaps not even done at all.
Nina Byington is now 34 days old. She and her sister Mina have beaten the odds. And Nina is still on a respirator but doing well. Her twin, the smallest one at birth, is actually a little stronger. But to their mother, they're both miracles, fragile lives that won their fight. Tim Byington, the proud father, still has to dress in a sterile gown for his daily visits. Doctors say they simply don't want to take any chances with infection at this point. The babies have passed the most critical phase of their lives. Now it's just a matter of growing larger and stronger. Nina weighs just over 3 pounds. She'll stay in the neonatal unit for at least another 6 weeks. Her sister should be going home by the end of this month. Lindy Cavanaugh, Action 4.
The current situation in the oil markets is enough to warm the heart of an economist, because it turns out that supply and demand are not dead, but alive and well, at least in the energy business. Not so long ago, there was a lot of talk about a conspiracy on the part of the major oil companies to create a shortage and to raise oil prices. You don't hear much of that talk anymore, and the reason is simple. Market forces, supply and demand, have proved to be more powerful than any cartel, either domestic or international. The current price of $34 a barrel, OPEC is finding few buyers and a lot of sellers of oil. Anytime supply exceeds demand, you're going to observe a surplus or a glut, and that's exactly what we see today. Now, that glut is not going to last forever, but what eliminates the surplus is good news for the consumer. The surplus will go away when oil and gasoline prices come down, and that's what they're doing right now. Of course, they won't stay down, but they won't go up until the American economy starts to come out of the current recession. That shouldn't happen for another 3 or 6 months. So the bottom line is, forget about the conspiracies and enjoy the cheaper gasoline. For Action 4 News, I'm Will Clark.
The jury, which is made up of 5 women, 7 men, and 2 alternates, was selected around 2 o'clock this afternoon. After a short recess, the trial began with opening statements by Logan County District Attorney James Langley. Langley opened up saying he's going to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Michael Newberry raped Janella K. Garrett and then killed her with a hammer and a knife. Langley will also be using hair and blood samples found on Newberry's pickup to support his case. But defense attorney Burt Richards said in his opening statement that he's prepared to show that the blood found on the pickup came from Newberry's wife when she cut her finger working with him. Richard will also attempt to prove the hair samples also matched those of Newberry's daughter.
These guys are not only the biggest act in the circus, they are also the oldest. In the old days, they earned their keep in hay by towing heavy objects and pulling up the tent stakes when the show was over. Their only concern now is the act. Waiting next door to perform are the majestic cats. The lions and tigers are probably the most popular act in the circus. But before they can go on, this steel net has to be erected around the center ring for the safety of the audience as well as the animals. The work these men are doing demonstrates the time and strength that is involved in opening night preparations. It takes a total of 10 men just to lift the grid for the curtain. This job is being done by the Shriners sponsoring the circus. It's their way of helping a show that will help others. A lot of the acts in the show do it all on their own. These trapeze artists set up their own equipment, and with good reason.
I don't think I would trust my life to someone else. We have people helping us, but we make sure that everything is nice and secure so that we'll stay on the road a long time.
From the looks of these trapeze artists and the rest of the performers, the 1982 Shrine Circus will be flying high. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 at the Shrine Circus.
A juvenile of this young, especially at 10 months old, has the right to be protected, and it was the feeling of the District Attorney's Office and the Moore Police Department that the protection had not been given to that child, that it had been left uncared or without supervision from approximately 10:30 or 11 o'clock that morning until at 4:30 when the child was taken to the hospital from ingesting or inhaling this insect spray.
The House Subcommittee on Armed Services Readiness came to Tinker to find out if the Department of Defense was right. The department says centralized purchasing would save the military money without hurting their ability to respond to a security crisis. The committee wanted to hear from experts on how or if the system would work. Committee member Representative Dave McCurdy of Oklahoma, whose district houses Tinker, says the idea bothers him.
I'm very concerned about the issue of the consumables transfer, not only from the readiness standpoint, but also the direct impact on Tinker and other bases in regards to jobs.
Other committee members echo McCurdy's concern, and they wanted to know if the DoD system was responsible for equipment error.
And Congressman Matsui from Sacramento, where there's a base, said that they now have consumable items that are in DLA, and that 13% of those items they receive from DLA are responsible for 47% of their aircraft not being flyable.
Generals from the Air Force, Army, and Navy responded that the department's idea was neither efficient nor wise relating to arms readiness, and they proceeded to dispute and disprove the facts the Defense Department has presented to support their case. Representative McCurdy wanted to be sure maintenance bases, like Tinker, were handling their inventory properly, and that the Norfolk Naval Base, where over $1.5 million of inventory disappeared, was an isolated case.
Can you quickly describe the physical security here and how much security there is as to the particular inventory itself?
In a facility like this, we have about $38 million worth of spare parts that are either in receipt or in transit through rail, truck, and aircraft. And so it requires very strong management attention and good supply discipline. And I hope that in my testimony here this morning that I can convince you that at Tinker, the Oklahoma City Air Logistics Center, that we have that kind of management attention and that kind of integrity of supplies.
Following the hearing, McCurdy toured parts of the base to see firsthand Tinker's system of inventory. The Oklahoma City base is the only one to use some of the items stocked here, and base officials feel a centralized system could only mean more bureaucracy, not more efficiency. Many committee members seem to agree, and they hope they can convince the Department of Defense to change their plans. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at Tinker Air Force Base.
I can't go back and make apologies for what did or did not happen before the explosion, and unfortunately we often have to have something like a tragedy bring us to the point where we do a lot of things that with hindsight we might think should have been done right along. But I think this has had an impact not just in Oklahoma City but throughout the state and nation in terms of precautionary kinds of measures that will be taken with hot water heaters that were never taken before.
Yes, it's very much. There's about 10,000 units across the country right now, based through different hospitals and individual homes. So it gives those older people, yeah, I can live at home and be independent, but have help if I need it.